Ahoy, it's Jen from Dream Prague. Today I want to talk to you about how I learned Czech. Now, I'm not by any means an expert, but I am a voracious student of Czech, and I've taught English for several years, and so I can see the ways my students sort of make mistakes in their language learning, and I can apply that to my own study of Czech. And so in this video, I want to pass along some of those tips to you. Now, these are good for anybody learning any language, but the examples I use and the resources I use are specifically for Czech learners. This is just a little brief excerpt from my online course, How to Move to Prague. There's a whole module about language learning, and I give a lot of the details that I'm going to talk about today and more. You should definitely check that out at the link below, or you can go to dreamprague.com/move. If you're learning about the Czech Republic, you've probably learned that Czech is one of the most difficult languages to learn. The Foreign Service Institute classifies it as a level 3, which basically means an native English speaker needs approximately 1,100 hours of Czech in-course study to get to a level of professional fluency. French, Spanish, and Italian, on the other hand, are level 1, and so you need approximately 600 to 700 hours to get to the level of proficiency that it would take twice as long to get to in Czech. And now I think one of the problems with people from the United States is that we just assume that we're not smart enough for languages, or we don't have a special skill that's required. But the truth is, it's just not a priority for us. Because when you come over to Europe, you realize that people speak 3-4 languages, and they do it every day for work. The difference is that a Czech speaker has to learn English just to do business every day if they want to work internationally. So for them, it's a priority, and that's the difference. They're not more clever than us, they just make it a priority in their life. You can absolutely live in Prague and not speak more than a few key phrases of Czech, and you can function that way for sure. And I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that that's definitely how I started out. I spent my first 5 years here just kind of dabbling in Czech courses when I had time. I didn't get very far. And then right around year 5, I had to take an A1 exam, so the first level, in order to qualify to be a permanent resident here in the Czech Republic. I crammed all summer before the test, and I just barely passed it. It was quite hard for me. I was pretty disappointed in myself because I figured that by year 5, I would be fluent. I didn't really have a plan for how that was going to happen, but I kind of thought, well, sure, I'll live here for 5 years and I'll just kind of absorb the Czech on the streets. And so at year 5, when I'm barely passing an A1 exam, I felt pretty bad. And so I sort of made myself a plan. All the things that I preach to my students, I really put it together and I created that sort of plan for myself. And so that's what I teach in the module of my free course, How to Move to Prague. And I'm going to give you some of the highlights here today in this video. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get a feel for how the language sounds. They have a lot of words with which sounds a little rusty. That's not a sound we have anything close to in English. And so you want to hear it and you want to say it. So one thing I did was I got Pimsleur CDs. Now they have the downloadable version, and it's basically call and response. So they say a word and you repeat it back. And this is good because it helps shape your mouth to the actual physical muscles needed to say these words these sounds you've never had to say. You can do this by buying Pimsleur. It's like $100, but you can also do this by going to YouTube and Googling some Czech videos. You could Google Czech cooking, Czech sports, Czech other things, something you're interested in, and play it, and then listen, repeat, rewind, and play it again, like in little chunks, just to get your mouth used to the sounds. You don't have to know what they're talking about necessarily, but get accustomed to those sounds. Here's a pro tip. If you simply Google or search on YouTube Czech cooking, you're going to get English videos about Czech cooking. So what you do is you go to Google Translate, make sure that your language is English and it translates to Czech. You can choose the different languages there. And then search that term in YouTube to get some videos that are actually in Czech. The next thing you want to do is expand your vocabulary. Generally, when people start taking a language, it's tailored to like a kid's level. You learn your body parts, you learn furniture, rooms in the house, colors, things like this. But when you're walking around Prague, especially your first couple weeks, you're not going to be asking the person on the street where you can buy like a brown couch or in what room do they keep their bed linen. These are not important things on a day-to-day basis. But what is important is up to you. Maybe you're allergic to peanuts. You need to know how to say, does this have peanuts? I have an allergy. Some things you're going to say probably within the first couple days. Kde je záchod? Kde je tramvaj? Dám si pivo, prosím. Ještě jedno, prosím. Zaplatím, prosím. So if you can get these phrases in your brain, rather than individual words that seem like beginner words but aren't really applicable to your day-to-day life, that's a good start. Now you can write physical flashcards that helps cement it in your memory, or you can make digital flashcards. And in my online course, I show you how to use Google Translate and sort of compile a list of all your words, and then export those to a digital flashcard called Quizlet, and then you can do them on your phone when you're on the metro or just in your day-to-day life. So those are really helpful ways to learn new words every week. Now, Czech grammar is notoriously difficult, and that's why it gets classified as such a more difficult language for us than French, Spanish, or Italian. This is mostly because Czech is declined, which means that nouns, adjectives, pronouns, they get changed depending on where they are in the sentence. Now, this is a tip if you've been learning Czech for a couple months. If you're a beginner, don't worry, you'll understand this in a little bit. Take a word like dog, it's pes, but depending on what preposition it follows, the word changes. So for example, s means with a dog is s psem. So dog is psem. But if you say without a dog, it's bez psa. So instead of sort of learning your grammatical tables so you can plug something in and as you're speaking, you're thinking, is that fourth case or seventh case? I like to learn nouns with the preposition that they're going to follow, most likely. So at the bus stop or in the metro, you learn these kind of phrases together. So I would make a flashcard of s psem or bez psa, so that they're almost like these phrases in my mind. Now, if you didn't quite get that, don't worry. That's going to come in your first couple months of learning Czech, but if you're more advanced, you might take that tip. Next, you really want to read beyond textbooks. I first started picking up the Metro newspaper and trying to read it while I was on the Metro, but you're down underground and you can't really translate it, you've got no service, and you just kind of get caught up in words you don't know, and it can be frustrating. I had the best of intentions, but it was a little bit over my pay grade. So instead, I started getting these zrcadlový text. Zrcadlo means mirror, and a zrcadlový text is basically a book that has Czech on one side and English on the other. And it's so great because there are a lot of classics, so this one's Great Gatsby, and you can read each sentence as you go along, and you don't have to be reaching for Google, you don't have to be reaching for a dictionary, you just can see how the Czechs phrase things. It's also really helpful to understand word order because Czech word order is different than English word order, and if you just make the mistake of translating every word, like I have a problem doing, it comes out as goulash to Czech speakers. They don't know what you're talking about, so it's really important to learn the word order and how it differentiates, and you're definitely going to get that from a text. The next one is you really want to take advantage of Czech television, and there's Czech television that's for free, and I have links in my free online course. When I first started watching Czech television, we watched a show called Vypravě, and it's kind of like the wonder years of the Czech Republic. It traces one family from the 60s all the way through to the 2000s. And those were very tumultuous times for Czech. So you get a lot of that history, and it's funny and it's cute. But it's very interesting because it's in Czech, spoken in Czech, and then there are subtitles in Czech, but there's no English subtitles. So my husband and I would watch it and kind of be like, what? Are they having an affair? Or is that what happened there? I don't know. Should we rewatch it? And you're really like, it's like sink or swim. It's the perfect opportunity to like not rely on English at all. You have to judge by what's happening in the scene, which is another great way to learn Czech because it's like visual clues. So I have a link to that show in the online course, so check that out. Also, what you can do is you can watch Netflix shows or HBO shows in Czech. So they have both Netflix and HBO over here. And you can watch a movie that you are very familiar with. So we have like Great Gatsby and Midnight in Paris. We actually have those on DVDs. But I know every word in those movies. And when I watch them in Czech, things kind of open up for me. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's how they'd say that. I would never say it that way, but like they're just like making connections in your brain, and it's a movie that you already really like. So that's a really fun way to incorporate television watching into those 4 hours of extra work a week that you need to do to support your language studies. The next step is to go and join a course or to get a teacher. As a beginner, you might want to join a course because you can be surrounded by other people and you aren't on the spot all the time and you pick up a lot of what they're saying. A course will also sort of pull you through. It will give you new vocabulary that you have to go home and study, or it will give you new grammar that you have to go home and study. It kind of gives you the plan and gives you some momentum. I have links to courses that I have taken in Prague, and those are all in the free course, and I highly recommend the ones that I've listed there. I also hire a conversation teacher. So you can find these on italki.com, and I also have some recommendations in my free course. And the good thing about a conversation teacher is you can talk about whatever you want. So maybe I'll pick a theme, like I had a negative experience with the handyman, so I thought, okay, I better get my handyman language down. So those are the words that I study that week, and then I think of sort of expressions that I'd want to say. I see like if I know the grammar, not sure. And then when I have my conversation lesson, I can speak with Eliška and ask her like, would I say it this way? We can do some sort of improv. We can talk as if she's the handyman. So that's the beauty of having an online conversation class. If you want to find your own personalized language instructor, check out dreamprague.com/italki to find hundreds of teachers waiting to connect with you. You can try out a few different teachers until you find the one that fits your needs. You can even work with some of my teachers, like Eliška. And if you sign up through my link, you'll help me support my channel. So thanks. And the last bonus tip is for someone who's like really drilling down and really wants to make it to the next level. You need a goal, right? Obviously. But a goal is not fluent in 5 years or B1 by this date. I mean, it can be a goal, but I like to have a goal as like a project, the completion of a project, and the project gives you the steps. So one example could be you could promise yourself to journal in Czech. Even if you're starting out as a beginner, have one sentence every day that you write in your journal be in Czech. And then as you build, you can have more of the entries in Czech. And then you're actually like wanting to express yourself. It's no one there but you're learning how to write in Czech. My own personal project, which I'm starting, is to make some of these videos for a Czech language audience. My idea is to make YouTube videos, but in Czech. And the process goes like this. I come up with an idea, I script it out, and then I try to make the script as good as possible. And then I share it with my conversation teacher, and she helps me correct some errors, and she helps me put things in a way that Czechs would say it. And then I use my phone and I record myself in Voice Record, which is the free app on the iPhone, about a 5-minute script, and then I can play it for myself all week. And it's amazing the difference from the first time I've read the script, where I'm really hacking away at it, to like the 5th time I listen to it, I say it, or maybe I even re-record it, and the words come much more fluently. So you think you know these words, but you never really use them, and so they're kind of a bit of tongue twisters. Then I film it, and that's a little nerve-wracking, even though it's just me in a room with a camera. It's a goal, and it's a commitment, and it's kind of a fun thing to do because I really like making videos. Coming up with a project is like a next level way to take your language to the next level. I hope that these tips kind of sparked your interest in learning Czech. If you want more details about and resources, all the things I talked about today and more, that's in a whole module in my free course that you can find at dreamprague.com/move. So, tak čau, ahoj, příští týden.